Welcome into another playoff edition of Daily Faceoff Live. It is Wednesday, April 30th. We are streaming live on the Daily Faceoff YouTube, and as always, looking for your inbox questions. The show is a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. And last night, this first round, anything but ordinary, Frank Seravalli. Man, I mean, let's just jump right into things, because that Ottawa-Toronto game did not go how I expected, how we expected. I thought even if the Senators were going to win, it was going to be they staved off this great Leafs attack. But it was this scrappy Sens team that finds a way to, quite honestly, just be the better team and force a sixth game.
I take back everything that I said about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Remember before, the words that I used: clinical, composed. I'm at a loss for words now, because at a certain point, and this is kind of why I picked the Sens to start the series, to kick off the playoffs. That was my upset in the East, because we have yet to see this Maple Leafs team really write a different story. And you get to the key clutch moments of a series, games 5, 6, and 7. The Toronto Maple Leafs are 1-13 in the Matthews and Marner era in closeout games. A chance to end a series. 1-13. When you're 1-13, you lose all benefit of the doubt. And so I understand what they're saying about, hey, we're in control of the series, we're in the lead, things will be fine. It's kind of like Matt Larkin used this in his story today on dailyfaceoff.com. It's like that meme where the guy's standing there and there's flames everywhere and he says, "This is fine." I mean, that's essentially the GIF that, like, if you could use a GIF to describe the Toronto Maple Leafs, everything is fine. Games 5, 6, and 7, you're shut out. You don't score. Look at this graphic here. This is since 2018-19 when they were first put together, and it's from Matt Larkin's story today. How's that possible? That's an 11, by the way, for Austin Matthews in points, 6 and 5. But Mitch Marner, 5 points in 16 games. No goals. It's like it's the UC Soros commercial. No goals. No goals. That's what we're looking at here. And I want to remind everyone that these guys are consistently north or at point per game players in the regular season. Well below that when it matters most. And so here we go again, is the feeling that everyone has in Toronto. And I'd hate to sit here and say you're wrong, because I don't have anything to back that up and say, hey, you should feel differently.
Yeah, I mean, even just looking at this here and this recap from last night, it's like, how are Matthews, Nyes, and Marner -4? Like, I know the shorthanded goal is the one that gives all these guys an extra minus, but like, man, and the empty netter too when they were all on the ice. But like, it's unacceptable. Frank, the last time the Leafs scored a power play goal in a closeout game, Patrick Marleau was the one who scored it. They're over their last 30 with the man advantage. And I guess to maybe spin this in another way, because we did get a comment in here. I lost the name. I think it was Anthony, who said, put some respect on the Senators' name. And hey, to their credit, look at those stat lines for Tkachuk and Stützle. Like, their first playoffs, they're showing that they got a little jam. They got some fight in them.
Yeah, and I expected that. And I'm not taking anything away from the Sens, because, you know, you hear their coach Travis Green afterwards say, like, hey, I don't know that we felt any pressure the whole time. They're playing with house money here. There are no expectations. This team is not expected to win the series, which further underlines to me the issue for the Toronto Maple Leafs. This is supposed to be the easiest one of the run. This was the spoils of winning the Atlantic Division. You know who's waiting on the other end of this? Likely the Florida Panthers, who are going to blow your doors off.
Yeah. It's interesting too how one game, and that game being game 5, can almost change your perception of the other ones. Because now I sit here and I look back, I fired up Natural Stat Trick, and that was actually the third time in the series the Senators won the expected goals for battle. And you sit there and now you look back and you go, man, those 2 overtime games, like those are just coin flips. Those are bounces. Like there's a world where the Senators are up in this series heading to game 6. Like, I don't know. And again, maybe who knows if game 6, if the Leafs go and blow the doors off them and it's 6-0, maybe we view all of this totally differently as well. But right now, hard to feel good if you're a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, even with a 3-2 lead in the series. Let's go out west, Frank, where they are going back up to Alberta for game 6. And it's the Oilers heading back to home ice with a chance to once again close out the Los Angeles Kings in a series that was filled with the over. It was high-scoring game after high-scoring game, and the Kings taking advantage of all of these Oilers' mistakes. Last night wasn't that. It was the Oilers, I think, in a way, showing that they are the veteran experienced team. They played their best game of the series. It was the first time they've put together 3 competent periods, and man, if I was an LA Kings fan or in that LA Kings room going back up to a building where you've been eliminated 2 of the last 3 years, hard to feel good. Even with how good Darcy Kemper played, like it's hard to feel good heading into game 6.
Yeah, the Kings are swimming in the deep end of the pool now, and I'll be very surprised if they don't lose 4 straight to close out this series. What did I say on the previous 2 shows and talked about it on Monday's show? You'd have to feel really good if you're an Oiler fan because all you need to do is clean it up just a little bit. And that's exactly what they did in game 5. It was surgical. It was forceful. It was aggressive right from opening puck drop. I mean, how many shots did they have in the first 2 periods? They were attacking the LA Kings like the confident team that we've seen from the Oilers in the past. That game last night felt like so many games from last year in this same series between these 2 teams where there was a clear advantage and the ice was tilted in Edmonton's favor. Darcy Kemper played great, but guess what? On the other end, Cal Pickard made the saves that he needed to as well. And I guess you could say maybe a little bit of a surprise start. I know you said that you would have absolutely stuck with Cal Pickard after games 3 and 4, but it also, with the series shifting, would have been a natural inflection point to throw Stuart Skinner back in there. They ride with Pickard, and now they're 1 win away from advancing in a most improbable fashion based on the way that the first 3 or 4 games played out, just because they cleaned it up.
This is a conversation I was kind of having after game 3, and it would still rung true after game 4. And we touched on it a little bit, but Jim Hiller basically running a short bench. He's running 9 forwards. He is running 4 defensemen. And last night it was a little bit different because he did play Brant Clark quite
Adrian Kempe on defense.
I mean, but that's exactly where I wanted to go, is like, everyone looked at this Kings team coming in and was like, they're so deep. They're so deep. They're going to be way deeper than Edmonton, who just has the stars. And I look at last night and it's like, you're now running Kempe as a defenseman in the third, while the Oilers didn't even need to get a goal from McDavid, Draisaitl, or Hyman. It was Evander Kane and Matthias Janmark who did the damage. And it's like, I think playing the 9 forwards and doing all this, like, Jim Hiller's swimming right now.
I don't think you're wrong. He hasn't had an answer and appeared flustered about the third period comebacks. And I do think that a big reason for the third period comebacks from the Oilers is because the Kings have been dead tired defensively. Those guys that they're running into the ground, it's too much. And Adrian Kempe playing defense, like, my God, my head's exploding just thinking about the idea of thinking that that's a good plan. I'll say this. With the decisions that have been made to this point in the series, including the coach's challenge, Jim Hiller might not live this down, this playoff run. If the Kings are bounced in 6, this might spell the end of Jim Hiller's tenure in Los Angeles.
Well, and again, this is probably a conversation to have if they do get eliminated. But if you're higher up in that Kings front office and Rob Blake comes and says, I'm firing another coach, you got to kind of point to him and go, no, you're not. You're done, man.
I don't think that's the case. Rob Blake does not have a contract for next season. He has already been offered a contract by the Kings, and he has not agreed to it. I don't think there's any squabble over money. I think there's a legitimate question of, does it make sense to turn this over into someone else's hands moving forward if the Kings aren't successful? 8 years with Rob Blake at the helm and no playoff round wins to this point. I mean, that's a legitimate question to ask. So could be wholesale changes coming for the Kings depending on what happens next.
Couple of overtime heroes from last night. Frank, let's talk about the series that we haven't really talked a lot about. The Carolina Hurricanes finish off the New Jersey Devils in double overtime. Their best player was their best player. Sebastian Aho ties the game with 8.5 to go, and he finishes the job in double overtime with another power play marker off of that double minor. Here we'll get a look at the OT winner. Jacob Markstrom just frustrated beyond frustrated as this one goes in. But the Canes are off to round 2, and I just kind of shrug and go, yes, as expected.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not the way that Game 5 a lot of people saw playing out. I mean, Devils having a 3-0 advantage in the game. They just looked defeated. Like they looked like they were totally out of gas in overtime. I think they managed 3 shots total in the double OT. And the Canes were all over them from kind of start to finish in this series. A totally lopsided matchup. I predicted a sweep. In this case, the Devils kind of made things interesting in the back end of this series with the double OT and then, of course, winning Game 3. And I think the real playoffs for the Carolina Hurricanes start next round. They get the winner of the Montreal Canadiens and Washington Capitals. And if it is the Caps, I mean, if it is the Canadiens, it'll be fascinating either way. But if it is the Caps, I think it's going to be a pretty good test for both teams. I think Washington has the ability to push around the Canes, kind of like they've done at times against the Montreal Canadiens in this series. But the Canes, advancing. Hey, look, that's what Rod Brind'Amour does. First coach in NHL history to win a round in 7 consecutive years, all with the same team.
All right, now let's go to the other game that ended in overtime. We joked with Ken Bolke yesterday. We're like, hey, has Vegas already dodged the bullet, or is there another push coming from Minnesota? Frank, they dodged a bullet by inches. They get an OT winner. They are now up 3-2 in this series. But man, they probably shouldn't be. Like, that was the offside review is what I'm talking about here. Minute 15 to go. Ryan Hartman finds the back of the net. But again, challenged, overturned by a hair. And you had a tweet yesterday, which I thought was great. Like, listen, we've opened Pandora's box. Reviews can't go anywhere. But it's a shame that we lose some moments like this.
And look, let me just acknowledge a couple things first off. Good on the Vegas Golden Knights and their video team for catching this. Like, I think it was something that you'd obviously look at, and even to the eye, it looks like it's very close. But like, I said millimeters in my tweet, and like people were scoffing at it, saying like, "Oh, like you're insane." But if you freeze it, like look at where his skate edge, the edge of his skate is in the back left blade, and then look at the puck, and it's actually rolling on edge at the same time. This is as close as it gets. My point being, and what I said, it doesn't matter who wins or loses, who wins, who gets screwed, whatever the case may be. It has nothing to do with last night's game in particular, but everything to do about the overall state of the game, which I think is we are in a spot where this is not what we're seeing, and how this is being challenged is not the intention of the coach's challenge. It was designed to miss egregious calls. These are bang, bang, not egregious calls. And I made the joke saying, maybe we should have AI go back over history and time and look at all of the series impacting or changing goals that were scored and see if they could pick apart something on video and tell us how many of those were actually offside. We didn't know, and we didn't care, because that's the way life was. And if we went back to that, I don't think that's a bad thing. It'll be broken down infinitely because that's how the world works, and that's how many cameras and technology are there. But I watch that and I go, okay, that one maybe makes sense because it was a goal scored off the rush. But I think back to the Florida game the night before in the overtime review, that was a long time from zone entry all the way to a puck in the net. And yet it comes back because the offside had nothing to do with the goal entering. And so I guess I just struggle with video review in general. I think we've got too much of it. I think it takes too long. We saw back-to-back reviews. First reviewed, was it kicked into the net? The obvious answer was no. Then that gives Vegas time to think about it. They challenge. They get it right. Why wouldn't you challenge at that point? A minute left in the game. Who cares if you've got to kill off a penalty? you have the opportunity to maybe take a game-winning goal off the board, which is what happened, and the Golden Knights go on and win.
Yeah. Kiefer says it in the chat. Maybe you make the punishment more strict or harder for a missed challenge. Maybe make it a double minor and you get a little bit less. But even in this scenario, Vegas is challenging that all day, like you said. All right, one more big story to get to before we. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, my take is just to get rid of offside video review in general.
Yeah,
totally.
And I mean,
just totally get rid of it. You can keep goalie interference and battle it out, and that is where you're going to see some potentially more harsh penalties.
Yeah. And again, once every 10 years, you'll get a Matt Duchene goal, and then it'll be a big story for a week and it'll go away. One more big story before we get to our big segment. Yesterday, it's official. Rick Tocchet is leaving the Vancouver Canucks. Let's start Tocchet and his decision, not based on money from what you're reporting.
No, they put a big offer on the table with term that would make him one of the highest paid coaches in the league. In the end, not about money. And so I had reported all along, not about money. This is about a plan, a process, and a chance for success. And when you reach these moments in time with a contract expiring, it's a natural inflection point to stop and take stock of where everything is going. And the way that this year played out, how chaotic it was, and also the question marks that are giant for this team moving forward. What is the future of Elias Pettersson? Can he get back to being the player that he was? Who's going to be their second attack at center with JT Miller gone? What is the health of Filipino? Will Quinn Hughes be staying long-term when his contract is up? What is the future of Thatcher Demko in net? All really important key questions for the Canucks that I don't know if they were possible to get answers for Rick Tocchet. And so the big sort of equation for him is, okay, I'm saying no to the Vancouver Canucks and I'm walking away from a pile of money in a place that I know. Can I reasonably expect to get a job on this coaching cycle and land somewhere else? And I think the obvious answer to that is yes. And the Philadelphia Flyers aren't even listed here, but they're one of the teams that would certainly be very interested in bringing a guy who's in their Hall of Fame back to the organization.
A lot of really interesting fits on that front. Jeff Patterson, our friend from Vancouver, with a good tweet. 1 year ago, the Canucks were up 3-1 on Nashville after a 50-win, 109-point season. They had 6 All-Stars, the Norris winner, and the Coach of the Year 1 year ago, and it's all kind of fallen apart in Vancouver. Last one, I guess, Rutherford, his comments. We know the relationship with Quinn Hughes. We won't play the video, but big deal or little deal, the way Rutherford seemed to talk about Hughes and his relationship with Tocchet?
Well, I think it's a big deal moving forward because he acknowledged previously that he'd like to play with his brothers, and he was very vocal about his interest in playing for Rick Tocchet. And there's zero doubt that the best foot forward that the Vancouver Canucks have put down has been with Rick Tocchet over the last 13 or 14 years. And with him being gone, they have to start over. And I wonder, with Quinn Hughes ultimately having the power in a couple years to be an unrestricted free agent, how much does he have interest in continuing on in what I believe is a very dysfunctional organization from top to bottom?
All right, let's get to our big segment for the day, Frank. It's a presentation of Budweiser. Budweiser is encouraging buds to make time for playoffs, not excuses. Every goal, every check, every win is better enjoyed with your buds. Phone a bud, text a bud, ping a bud, and call out their excuses for bailing on the playoffs. The playoffs are the most wonderful time of the year. Make them count with Budweiser. The blue paint with our friend Carter Hutton, former NHL goaltender. Let me start with a little story time question, Hutz. We saw Markstrom and his frustration after the double overtime loss. Longest OT game you ever played in your life?
I was in a triple OT game in Nashville. Mike Fisher got the winner against the San Jose Sharks. That was the longest I was in. That was a good one. And it was a late start because we were in Central Time. So I think the game ended almost at 2 a.m.
Oh my God, that is crazy. And you were playing, not backing up?
Oh, I was backing up. Come on, man. I was playing with Pekka Rinne. What do you think I was doing? I was backing up. I was tired, too. It was a late night for me. Come on, Ty. It's tiring on the bench.
That's fair. Let's talk about a couple of big crease situations, and none that's a bigger topic right now than Connor Hellebuyck. The playoff Hellebuyck narrative, is there actually anything that changes with his game? Like, what do you make of this and his struggles?
It's tough to break down, right? We're talking about the best goalie on the planet right now. He's been that way for so long. And I don't know if it's a block, but for me, it's just he seems stale. He just seems like he doesn't move as much as he does in the regular season. Again, this is a guy that kind of under moves to begin with. But now when I look at the playoffs and you eliminate all the fluff that goes on in the regular season, right? You have weaker opponents. Now you have all these teams that are playing good hockey and generating chances and getting to the net. And right now it seems like he's flat-footed. It seems as soon as the play travels east-west, he's a little bit lost. And to go on maybe with that mental side of it, what's going on between his ears, obviously the pressure of, he is one of those guys, this playoff success is holding him back from being on the Mount Rushmore of goaltenders. So that being said, it's not done yet. It's still a 2-2 series and it's a best of 3 moving forward. And if there's a guy that can bounce back, it's him. But it's got to be a mental side here for the rest of the team, knowing the way things have gone here with, obviously in 10 of his last 14, he's given up 4 or more goals, which is not very, obviously Connor Hellebuck-like that we're coming to used to.
So they announced the Ted Lindsay Award finalists today, and I thought it was really interesting that neither Hellebuck nor Draisaitl were there. But the thought process of players not voting for a goalie or not selecting Hellebuck here, do you read anything into that? Like, do players? They also picked Vasilevsky as the best goalie in the league in their player poll. Do players just think that Hellebuck's game is suspect?
Maybe. It might be something that's passed down because of that lack of success. And I think Vasilevsky is just held to a different standard because of those Stanley Cups. And I also think it's like the flair to his game, right, Frank? Like, he doesn't really give you a lot of, and again, like, this is something that I always struggled with as a goalie, where when I would try to make a glove save, I just try to catch the puck. And I try to be where if you catch the puck and you do a little windmill, everybody in the crowd cheers. And sometimes players aren't as knowledgeable about the position as the actual goalies or the goalie coaches or the management, where Hellebuck is just simple. He lets the game come to him. He uses his body, uses his size, he uses his smart. And from his interview the other day, he obviously studies position more than anybody. That was a very interesting interview from an interesting goalie. But that being said, I think it is just the fact that players hold those goalies with such high standards because of their Stanley Cup accolades.
Okay, so we talked about Hellebuck's mental block. We talked in the beginning of the show about the Toronto Maple Leafs and their forwards and their mental block. How much will Linus Ullmark be contributing to that now? Because it seems like as this series has gone on, he's gotten better and better and better. What have you seen from him of late that's allowed him to take his game to the next level?
Okay, so the same thing as I talk about being a little flat on his edges, when I watched Linus in that first couple games, he just looked so locked in, especially game 2 where there's a few plays. Morgan Riley scored backdoor where he's already down. He's already kind of locked in his edges. He doesn't have any lateral movement to his play. And then I watched him last night. It looks like the Linus Ullmark we've come to know. He has a little bit of flow to his game. And what Linus likes to categorize it as, a guy I played with for 3 years, is recoil in his game. So as the puck is traveling at him, he's creating a little bit of momentum, a little bit of flow back toward the goal line. So then when the puck does travel east-west on him, he has movement instead of being so locked in and dialed in on his edges. So last night was a great example of the Linus, the confidence, just the swagger that he has. He made it look so easy last night. And I think that's a scary thing for Toronto, right? You look at a team that hasn't been able to finish, their record 0 for 30 on the power play in elimination games and not getting points from their big dogs. Now with Linus Ullmark starting to play good, that was the only hiccup in this series, was Linus wasn't that great. Ottawa's been awesome this series. So there is a lot of confidence and a lot of good things going Ottawa's way heading into game 6.
I think it's so interesting to see some of the stat lines that these playoffs have produced. You look at Stolar's last game, like he only has to face 15 shots when you take out the empty netters and all of that. And you even go to Vegas and a team we talked about yesterday in Aiden Hill, whose numbers are like weirdly all over the place because it's a guy, he's given up 2 or 3 goals, but he's only facing 15 to 20 shots. Like, are we seeing some goalies maybe almost struggle with the decreased workload in these starts?
It is, yeah. It's tough, right? And that's where it comes down to the mental capacity of goalies, right? It's at times, I remember even when I played, I think my record at one point was like 8-1 when I have 35 shots or more in the NHL to start my career. And then, obviously that says what I was doing when I wasn't getting 35 shots, because that's where it comes with the experience, and that where it comes with the pedigree to be able to stay in the game when you don't have a flow. And circling back to goalies like Carey Price and Martin Brodeur, where they weren't getting a lot of action at times when Carey played for Team Canada or Brodeur was with those Devils. Staying in the game and making a timely save is huge, right? So I see Anthony Stolarz last night, obviously 2 goals against. One is a point shot where I don't think he even gets a look at it. Then the other one's a backdoor shorthanded goal. But that being said, you have to find ways to come up with timely saves. And I think for these goalies moving forward, it's about winning hockey games and trying to find that. But if your team can't find in the back of the net, it's going to be very tricky to win a series.
Yeah, I mean, you can't win without scoring. So do you go to Joe Wall, by the way, for game 6, or is that just an absolute panic move?
I think a panic move, Frank. Honestly, like, you look at Stolarz, right? You can judge his game a little bit, maybe in game 4, where he played and fighting it a bit. But I think he's been solid. And when I think of Craig Ruby, I think of an old school guy. I think he's anointed Anthony Stolarz as his guy. This is it. He's been through this run with Binnington. And Binnington was kind of Jekyll and Hyde during that playoff run as well, right? There were some nights where he wasn't great, and then the Blues would play well, and it went hand in hand. So I think at this point, you're kind of riding or dying, because if you're not going to score, it doesn't matter who the heck's in net.
Last one for you, Edmonton, LA. I mean, Darcy Kemper was excellent last night, but Calvin Pickard's the story there. He's not flashy. He's a journeyman or career journeyman kind of goalie. I categorize him as like a low ceiling, high floor goalie, if that makes sense. And is there a chance that that's just exactly what this Oilers team needs?
I think they need just someone that's steady, right? And you look at those numbers with a 908, and that's kind of what they've needed, right? And nothing against Stuart Skinner. He's been bad, and I don't think this is the end of this run, right? I think we're going to see Skinner at some point. I think he gets back into it, and this is a guy that can be in this. But he's come in, and he's been that stopgap for them here. And for Calvin Pickard, this is an awesome story. This is a guy that I played with, when I was younger. He's kind of battled. He got picked in the expansion draft by Vegas. Then he was almost out of the league. And so for him to fight back and come in a pressure situation, this is where it shows you to have experience and have a guy that can go in there and make a timely save, because this is a world-class hockey team. And last night's a great example of the Oilers are all over them, and LA opens the scoring, right? There's a lot of pressure to maintain and keep that focus. And for Calvin Pickard, he was a difference maker. And now it's going to be up to Edmonton. If they can keep defending hard in front of them and trying to find a way to score, they have a chance to really beat anybody this year.
All right, Pat, throw that Pickard graphic up on the screen real quick. Laying in bed last night, watching the game. My wife knows jack shit about hockey. Like, does not watch it, does not care. And she goes, how many guys wear that throat dangler thing? And I was like, you know what? I haven't seen a guy wear that in forever. How many guys do wear that?
More than you think, Frank. I think it's, who came out with one the other night was Logan Thompson after the Dylan Strome body-on-body crime there. But I wore one when I played. I actually wore the big dangler, and I wore a thick neck guard. And if my dangler would break in practice, I was so scared of the puck. So there were certain goalies I played with. Martin Jones was one of them, had a ton of neck exposed. And even Logan Thompson, if you watch next time, see how much of his neck's exposed. To me, it gives me shivers thinking about something happening. But I wish more guys wore it.
I'm with you, and I said the same exact thing to my wife. There's zero chance if I was playing in net that I think Hellebuck's a guy that has a ton of neck exposed too. Like I'm watching him, and I'm like, how do you, like, between skates, players going through the crease, and pucks, like one shot to your throat, like you're not coming back.
It's over, yeah. And you know what it is, Frank? What I always found is guys would always talk about it, guys I played with. They said it would mess their vision up, where I didn't find it because I would set it further back on my helmet instead of on my cage. But that being said, it's different when you're facing a puck straight on. That's easy. This is the same reason why I used to wear two jocks. I used to wear a player jock and a goalie jock, because I'm not worried about the shot straight on. I'm worried about the one when I'm flopping around out of position, which would happen a lot when I was playing. So just to be safe, it does worry me. And hopefully some guys start to wear neck guards or protect themselves a bit better.
Two jocks.
That's
two
killer.
jocks. We got it all today.
Thanks for your time, Carter. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Hashtag askdfo. Frank, you touched on it. No Leon Draisaitl, no Connor Hellebuck added into the Ted Lindsay finalists. What do you make of that?
I just think it's fascinating, and I know the players don't know this when they're voting for it, but how do you have two of the most outstanding players nominated from the same team? Like, there can only be one most outstanding player in the league, so therefore, how do you have, like, which one of these guys is the most outstanding guy from their own team? Is that stupid?
Yeah, no, I am with you on that. I was honestly really surprised. I thought there was a chance Connor Hellebuck would win this award. I thought players would be looking at the numbers, and I mean, he would have shut out or been dominant against so many guys this year. I thought he would have been at least a finalist. So that one was definitely surprising for me, Frank. Let's get to our daily bets for the day for our friends at Bet365, an official partner of the Stanley Cup playoffs. From game props, player props, totals, and money line, you can even bet on futures like series winners, conference champions, the Stanley Cup champions, and much, much more. Whatever you bet, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 or older. Download the app and get in on the game. 2 plays tonight: shot prop parlay, Caulfield and Ovi. put together 3+ shots each. They've both been ripping the puck a pretty decent amount. It comes out to -105. And then I like the over between the Jets and Blues. It's set at 5.5 and it's paying plus money. I'm sitting here going, listen, like if it was at 6.5, I wouldn't touch it. At 5.5, even if Connor Hellebuck bounces back, like a 4-2 game or whatever is not crazy.
I'm with you. And by the way, did you win your parlay last night?
No, because Evan Bouchard did not get a point in the hockey game.
Oh, okay.
That's the one that
I was
me.
thinking about riding with you. I'm kind of glad I didn't.
Yeah. The only Oilers defenseman who got an assist last night was John Klingberg, who's also been just like a crazy, weird story. Let's
Give
wrap
that man
up the
an
show.
extension.
Yeah, it's 2x4, 5x5. Who cares? Let's go to garbage time to wrap up the show. An interesting little development out in Utah, Frank, where the team's YouTube channel, some people were sharp on this one. It briefly changed its @ to Utah Mammoth. Maybe a sign that they're ready to announce a new name here soon?
Yeah, I would think something's coming. I mean, the fact that they changed it, and then when you went to Utah Mammoth later, the page didn't exist. And obviously they're working on something. The fact that Mammoth was one of the finalists and there were some logos revealed to fans. And by the way, too, work at Delta Center underway, well underway, blowing out the lower bowl. By the start of the season in the fall, every fan in the lower bowl will have a complete view of the ice. And I'm sure that some jackass is listening to this saying, oh, congrats, everyone's going to have a complete view. If you saw what it was like last year, the unbelievable construction effort to make that happen for this upcoming season is like, it's crazy what they're doing there. And so lower bowl will be complete by the start of next season. Upper bowl, there's going to be 2 more off seasons of work, but we're talking about like $1 billion in renovation for this arena that it's an unbelievable transformation. So full marks to Ryan and Ashley Smith and Smith Entertainment Group for being able to pull this off. Like as soon as the season was over, like there are no more seats left in the lower bowl. They're like removing concrete and everything. Like it's crazy what's happening there.
That is wild. All right. That is a wrap on today's edition of the show. To everyone in the chat who says I look or sound rough today, I was at our Oilers Nation watch party till like 11:30 last night and then had a meeting at 6 a.m. So, I mean, come on, it's the playoffs. No one's playing it 100%. I think you can all cut me a little bit of slack in the YouTube there.
I thought you sounded good. I thought it was the best you sounded in weeks.
Yeah, well, I mean, there you go. Maybe that's not a compliment. But that's a wrap on today's edition of the show. Big thanks to Carter Hutton and our producer, Pat Pup. Once again, we'll see everybody back here tomorrow at noon Eastern. What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you're going to want to hit the subscribe button to not miss any of our content. From daily live shows with Frank Seravalli to analysis from former NHLers to exclusive interviews with some of the biggest names in the hockey world on Frankly Speaking. You're going to want to hit that subscribe button and stay up to date with everything going on in the hockey world.